Welcome to the Sweep Spot, a podcast about Disneyland history, touring, and behind the scenes. Hold on to your hats and glasses, folks, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
You're in the sweep spot, baby. You're in the sweep spot, girl. You're in the sweep spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweep spot, baby. You're in the sweep spot, girl. You're in the sweep spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweep spot, baby. You're in the sweep spot, girl. You're in the sweep spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweep Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn and my co-host is Laura. How's it going tonight, Laura?
It's going great, Lynn. I'm really excited to talk about the Haunted Mansion holiday.
Yeah, it's
today.
Going to be great.
Yeah.
We also have a very special guest later in the show. And we're going to first discuss the holiday Haunted Mansion, the history, and just talk about some of the things that we've experienced when we were working there and whatnot. This is episode 29 of the Sweet Spot Podcast, and something I've been meaning to do the last few shows is just kind of, if this is your first time listening, we're two former Disneyland cast members, Custodio cast members, and we just talk about Disneyland history. We talk about some of our experiences working in the park. We give like touring tips that we know, little secrets and things that we can maybe share with Disney fans out there. So, and we have plenty of interviews. We try to get people that are, affiliated or maybe put out a book about Disneyland or worked for Disney or in Disneyland or did something with the making of something, like our guest tonight. So that's pretty much what we do. There'll be contact information at the end of the show, so I hope you enjoy it. And this is episode 29. Okay, we're going to now talk about the Holiday Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and it's a overlay that was put in October 2001, and it wasn't necessarily the first holiday overlay that Disneyland did. I can think of one right now. It's the Country Bear Jamboree we talked about. On one of our earlier episodes, they had a Christmas overlay for that, and then the Small World, they have a Christmas overlay that they do for that, and this was pretty much right after that. I think the Small World was in like 98, 99. This is a couple years after that, but they had a special event that kind of kicked off the opening of this, and it was an event that they were going to have on TV televised. I don't know if it was through like the news or if it was the Disney Channel, but they were scheduled to have Tim Burton and Danny Elfman there, and some of the other people that were involved in the Nightmare Before Christmas movie, and that helped with the making of this attraction, but they didn't make it to the event. At least Danny Elfman and Tim Burton didn't, but the event still went on, and there was two packages available that night: a low price ticket that got you into the show, which was the show for the TV, and then a ride through. Then there was a higher price ticket for $200 that got you into the show, a dinner in the Blue Bayou with some of the artists that created some of the merchandise, and then a ride through. Not sure if that's worth $200, but okay. And anyways, we'll just kind of talk about some of it right now. One thing I did want to mention is that when we were working there, you had mentioned when we were talking earlier about you had seen some of the construction, or you were curious and saw some.
Yeah, so when this was all going on in 2001, it was very secretive. Everything was closed off to the mansion.
Yeah.
You weren't, like, nobody was really allowed to snoop. You weren't even allowed to go back there. No one knew what was going on, really, but there was a rumor that people had seen Tim Burton
Yeah.
over by the Haunted Mansion. And there was a rumor about Nightmare Before Christmas, but nobody knew what was really going on. And but we still had to clean the bathrooms down there because there were two cast member restrooms that we were supposed to take care of. So we were the only ones who were allowed to go down there, and we were only allowed to go to the restrooms.
Yep.
That was it. We weren't allowed to go to, like, the break rooms or anywhere around. And so I went to go clean the restroom, and I happened to, like, peek around the corner, and I saw the Jack Skellington that goes in the elevator.
On the ceiling?
Yeah, on the ceiling, So I was like, I saw that, and I'm like, it is Nightmare Before Christmas that they're doing here.
Yeah.
That's so cool, because it was so secretive. Like, I just remember, like, you weren't allowed, if you saw it and you knew about it, you weren't allowed to tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, they did not want it leaked at all.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like 2 months that they had it down for the first time, putting stuff in. And it seemed like overnight, because I mean, the outside of the mansion didn't look any different than it normally does. And the day that it opened, the whole outside was changed. So it's like they did it all in one night. They did the outside.
Right.
And it was just amazing. I think they had, before they opened it, they had like a little bit of the decorations like sprinkled around Orleans. So they had some like jack-o'-lanterns, and they had the little skeletons.
Right.
The skeleton bat things, but nobody, I mean, back then you didn't associate that directly with Nightmare Before Christmas because there weren't a lot of those in the movie. So those were like post-movie for the holiday.
Right.
So it was really interesting because the Nightmare Before Christmas itself as a movie, when it first came out in 93, was a sleeper film. Not a lot of people went and saw it. Not a lot of people liked it. I loved it from the beginning. I was a hardcore fan and saw that Disney, was the one backing the film with Tim Burton. And I was able to, at the time, since it didn't get a whole lot of, publicity and it was a sleeper film, they didn't really have a whole lot of merchandise on it. So at the time, I had gone to Disneyland that year, and I found I think it was one of the Main Street shops, I had found Nightmare Before Christmas, like, pencils, and the top of them had Lock, Shock, and Barrel. So I got, like, 3 pencils, and that was the only thing I had in my collection for Nightmare Before Christmas, because that was all that you could find. You could not find anything. And over the next years, I would always go back there and see if they had anything else, and they never did. So in a way, when they brought the Haunted Mansion Holiday out, this movie really got recognized for the cult classic that it became that it came to be. I mean, anybody who loves Tim Burton loves The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think that's part of it, of why it's a cult classic, is who made it and how creative he is with the stop motion animation. I mean, that
Yeah, for sure. I
it took him like 10 years, I think, to make the film, or
I don't know, but
something ridiculous.
I'm sure it took a while just because of the way how you make that kind of movie. But I do know that like it's not for everyone. Like it's funny because some people I think that might like it, they just like no. It's either they really dislike it or they love it.
Yeah.
It's not like it's all right. I know that I really liked it. I like that form of art.
Yeah.
And
I do too.
my son, he's 4 years old, but even when he first watched it, I think he was 3. He just fell in love with it. So when we go to Disneyland in 2 weeks, I know he's just gonna really enjoy the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I love it. Myself, like I've been a Tim Burton fan since I was probably in
Yeah.
junior high, Um, so I've definitely followed his career
Hmm.
from the beginning. So one of the things that they did
Hmm.
before they had the Haunted Mansion holiday, Disney did recognize the Nightmare Before Christmas um, for years, and even after the Haunted Mansion holiday.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if they're doing it this year, but in previous years they would show the Nightmare Before Christmas at the El Capitan Theater,
Oh yeah.
which is owned by Disney,
Hmm.
and they would have an entire event beforehand, or was it after? Might have been after. It might have been both before and after.
Hmm.
But they had an extensive exhibit of the original stop motion Jack Skellingtons.
Nice.
They had the Pumpkin Mountain,
Hmm.
the Swirly Mountain. I mean, they had all sorts of things from the set
Wow.
on exhibit. So this was back before I ever owned a digital camera. I have all these photos that I took on film uh, of Nightmare Before Christmas, and it was kind of expensive to do that, but that's how much I liked it. And you could buy some of the pieces.
Oh yeah.
So they were auctioning some of the pieces, so you could definitely get them, but they were a hefty price. I remember thinking, oh, I would love to have that maybe one day when I get rich, but yeah, so that was really cool. I don't know if they're doing it this year, but they usually do it all through October, and on Halloween they do a special showing. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. But anyhow,
Yeah.
um,
That I was reading here that it took the creative team over 3 years to get permission for the transformation, which I could imagine. Just it's a classic attraction, and to
yeah,
have the idea of to go in there and change it up, and mess with some of the things they have going on in there. I can imagine that it wouldn't just be a decision they'd make overnight.
no, and I was reading about it, and I guess originally Disney considered doing a Christmas Carol
Hmm.
in the Haunted Mansion, but because of like kind of the eerie environment of the Haunted Mansion and New Orleans in general, they decided not to.
Mm.
And so instead, they decided to base it on The Nightmare Before Christmas after trying to consider what Disney character would celebrate Christmas in the Haunted Mansion.
Oh.
So yeah, if that and that's only if Santa Claus ever landed there.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Steve Davidson was the one who worked the idea with Walt Disney
Hmm.
to develop the whole overlay. So
Right.
he was the artist, and Garner Holt was the one who did the animatronics for it.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
Corey Burton is the host of
The ghost host.
yeah, and no relation to Tim Burton. It's just
No.
yeah, happens to be. But he sounds really good to Paul Frees, I believe, is the original voice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds pretty similar. Very good, I think.
Did you know that the Madame Leota Toombs was her name,
Mhm.
and to perform in her place was her daughter Kim Irvine,
Oh yeah.
because she resembled her mom so well that so they had her. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But they didn't use her voice. They used
Her face.
Susan Blakesley for her voice.
But they were both Imagineers, right? The two
Yeah.
mother and daughter.
Yeah.
That's
So-
cool. I know I saw Kim Irvine on a panel at the Legends panel at the D23, and so that's interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
So I was gonna talk about something else with the changes to it.
Mhm.
What was I mentioning here? Well, they do the overlay. They start doing it probably at the beginning of September. They'll start changing it over, and so Haunted Mansion will be closed during that time.
Yeah.
I know that the first time they did this, I remember it was closed for longer than that, but now they kind of have it down on
Yeah.
how to set it all up and everything. But normally
It's like
what are you gonna say?
only down for like 2 weeks now, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They do all that. I think before it was down for. I think it was closed for over a month. I know for sure.
Yeah, originally it was closed for like 2 months, from
You-
like August till October.
Yeah, it was like the end of summer to till October, but now they have it open right around the end of September,
Mhm.
and it'll go to right around after New Year's. And
Yeah. Goes down in January.
yeah, there was a soundtrack that was I think it was by Goodwin, Gordon Goodwin,
Yeah.
and his soundtrack was not. I mean, it was more. It wasn't really as much themed towards Nightmare Before Christmas, from what I had heard.
Yeah.
It was definitely themed more towards Haunted Mansion, but not as much towards the movie. And it was good, but they replaced it in 2002 with a soundtrack that's made up more of the original score.
Yeah.
And this score was done by John
Debney.
Debris.
Debney.
Debn, yeah, and
Yeah.
of course, Danny Elfman did the music in the movie, and I always loved his music.
I know. Me too. He's
Yeah.
my favorite composer.
Something interesting, in 1996, an Imagineer, Chris Merritt, submitted a proposal to Disney for a Nightmare Before Christmas themed dark ride.
Oh.
So it wasn't going to be in the mansion. It was going to be an actual separate dark ride. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I read that somewhere. But yeah.
But
It's just totally cool.
the gingerbread house that they have on it's the dining room table in the
In the ballroom?
Yeah, in the ballroom.
Yeah.
It's real it's made out of real gingerbread, and
Yep.
500 pounds of gingerbread, 6 feet tall. And it's made up by the art design department and the foods department. And every year it's a little bit different. The one this year I saw on the Disneyland Parks blog, that it actually has mechanical moving parts to it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, those cake shows where they do cake competitions
Oh,
and
yeah.
moving parts on the cakes. I'm
Right.
always fascinated by it.
That is
Because,
cool.
when you think about bakers,
Hmm.
people who make cakes and who gingerbread houses, think of them as people who make something with moving
Right.
parts and be smart on the mechanical stuff. But they're actually they're very good
Hmm.
at doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The ones that do it, they know exactly what to use, what kind of motors they need to use
Oh
and
yeah, they're
stuff.
true artists. I mean,
Yeah, they are.
um, something else. In 2002, on October 3rd, they had a special dinner. Um, I don't know if it was like a fundraiser or what, but it was $2,250 a person, and the dinner there was 30 guests
Hmm.
at the dinner, and they set up a long table that was very elaborated, decorations and down in the when you first get off the elevator and you walk down the long hall there, they put a big dining room table in there, and it was really decorated neat. I was the lead
Yeah.
that night, and had to help set up for it and clean um, down there for it, and so I got to see the table before the dinner and after. It's a lot of money to eat in the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like staying in the White House, right?
Yeah, I hope it was good food. It smelled good. I saw it come and go, but um
I know. That'd be terrible if you spent all that money and the food didn't taste that great.
yeah. Well, they
But
had like
yeah.
the food warmers like by the New Orleans locker, right there
Yeah.
at the exit of Haunted Mansion. There was like they had food warmers and everything set up there. Um,
Wow.
but something we were talking about earlier, the merchandise and being like more of the ride, making more of a cult. Uh,
Cult classic.
you were kind of mentioning that. It really boomed the merchandise for this movie and for the attraction overlay. I mean,
Yeah, and actually for Haunted Mansion in general, because
yeah,
now they have Haunted Mansion merchandise too
yeah,
that they never had before, or they probably had it at the opening, but
hmm
not after.
no,
So
and it has its own store now. It's the what is it called over there in New Orleans?
the Baton Rouge,
Yeah.
yeah, emphasis on bat during Halloween time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Did you want to mention anything about things,
Oh yeah.
parts of the
So
attraction that you really like, or something that you wanted to mention?
um, I really like how they adapted the whole thing.
Hmm.
Um, for the Haunted Mansion. So like when the minute you walk in and the soundtrack plays, it does this whole was the night before Christmas, and you know how the night before Christmas goes, right?
Hmm.
But it takes the same rhythm of the nightmare before or the night before Christmas and changes it um to Jack's story,
All right.
you know? And that I think is totally cool, like that they thought that up, And one of the very first things I bought of Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise from the overlay was the whole poem of the night before Christmas,
Hmm.
with the variation for Jack Skellington. And so I bought that back in 2001. Um,
Huh.
and I had framed it in a frame because it was extra long. It was a very long scroll.
Uh-huh.
And I had framed it as best I could. I couldn't find a frame that would fit it. And I think about like a year or two ago, my husband got it custom framed. So now it hangs in my office.
All
And
right.
they even treated the paper so that they could get all the wrinkles out of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was really cool. So I still have it, and I don't think they sell it anymore. I've not
Hmm.
seen it since the first year. that I had bought it, and I know it was just like a special edition collector's thing. So
Yeah, if you see something you like, just buy it then, because those kind of
yeah,
things, they'll come and go.
especially during like the first year or the first opening, that's when you have to get the Disney stuff because it's not going to be there the
No.
following years,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that I always found really, really neat.
Uh-huh.
And then the Jack Skellington in the graveyard. That animatronic is just blows me away.
Oh, I know.
And I like the elevator too. The elevator normally has the stretching pictures, which it still has, but they're altered for Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
Then they also have like the wreath in there that when it stretches, it grows teeth.
Oh, yeah.
But
they didn't want to mess with the portraits in the elevator. You know how they stretch. When they were going to replace and put the for the overlay and put the new pictures in there, but they were told that if they did that, it could take days to figure out how to put probably it's on a roll back into the pictures, the old ones, because they've never really been taken out. So what they did is they just put it over the whole outside. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that. But so yeah, I don't know, like the whole thing is like a stimulation overload when you get in there because
it is, yeah.
Haunted Mansion is usually very dark and dreary, and when you get the Nightmare Before Christmas Haunted Mansion holiday, you walk in there and all of a sudden there's bright colors, and even though like Nightmare Before Christmas is not really like a bright color, it's still like the tone of it is still dark,
right?
And every color is kind of like muted and more demure,
right.
But still, when you put those colors in the Haunted Mansion, it's all of a sudden a lot brighter.
Oh yeah, they just stick out, they just really stick out. And I think that's part of it, is what's so neat, is just that it just jumps out at you.
And the energy is totally different.
Oh yeah, the music is really makes it. It's more upbeat during the attraction, and yeah, like you said, so many different things going on at one time.
Yeah, it is, and it seems like they always change something every year. Like I think over where the Doom buggies are. I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna go see it tomorrow. But
the stack
they had
of
like presents
this
1 year. That they popped out of, and like I think another year they had like an advent calendar kind of thing there. But yeah, it seems like it changes.
Right.
There's certain things that change every year for that. Or they add something new.
Right.
So like when they first opened it, Oogie Boogie was one of the old Country Bears, right? It was Big Al, I think.
Right.
Yeah, they used his frame for Oogie Boogie, and now they have Oogie Boogie as his own animatronic. It's no longer Big Al.
That's neat.
So, yeah. It's pretty cool.
I know that one year they did like Christmas carols, but it was like called like Scary Carols or something outside of the mansion.
I think that was the first year that they did it.
I know they don't. I don't think they do that anymore. I don't remember it.
No, they don't. But yeah, they did do it, and it was from the movie.
Yeah, I like that.
Those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it takes the music from the regular Christmas carols and turns it into like a minor or diminished.
Oh yeah.
Frame.
Yeah, it just sounds darker.
Chords. Yeah. So it almost sounds like it's out of tune a little bit. But yeah, I totally get a kick out of it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it tomorrow. Totally.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna.
can't wait because there's a lot of stuff I forget about till you see it, and I haven't seen it probably in, I'd say, like 5 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, same
So
here. I when I was working there in 2007, that was the last time.
yeah, I think the last time I saw it was 2005 in October,
Oh, okay.
and because I made a special trip there because that I usually would go every year, and then in 2006 I got married. I don't remember if we went after that,
Uh
but
huh.
by 2008 I was already up here. So in 3 years, you know, I didn't have that much access to Disneyland. But with the annual pass I have, that's totally changed now.
Yeah.
So we're going a lot more. Oh, I did want to say that they
Hmm.
had planned to do Nightmare Before Christmas overlay
Hmm.
for Walt Disney World.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but um, I guess after they had built everything for Walt Disney World,
Hmm.
um, the park abandoned the plans to install it.
Hmm.
But Tokyo is an exact carbon copy of Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion. So what they did was they took that overlay and they sent it to Tokyo.
Oh.
So that's how Tokyo got the overlay. And you'll see in our interview later that Nightmare Before Christmas, if you think it's huge in the United States, it's even huger
Yeah.
in Tokyo. In Japan. They love Nightmare Before Christmas. Um, so yeah,
It,
so that's
it makes sense that they didn't do it in Florida because they don't do it really any overlays. And part of the reason that I've heard on other podcasts and makes sense is that because they don't have as much of a like a local crowd. It's more people traveling there. So if people are saving up to go to Disney World, they go maybe every 5 or 10 years, or maybe only once in a lifetime. They don't want to
mhm.
go and have this overlay and miss the original, what it is. But
Oh yeah.
Disneyland's more of a locals park.
Yeah, that's true.
Southern California, northern, just California, Arizona, just
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
it makes sense. So they don't really do. They don't. I think that one time they did try the Christmas. I could be wrong, but for the Country Bear, but
Hmm.
I don't think they normally do. So they don't do overlays over there. And I know that a lot of the Disney World fans would um, probably like to see some, especially like maybe to a Small World.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
Um,
I always thought
oh,
like I think Christmas overlays are really neat. I think
maybe too.
that um, they should do one for Tiki Room.
Oh, that would be cool.
Like a Tiki Christmas. I don't know.
Well,
Just
maybe like, for Walt Disney World, if they considered doing shorter Christmas overlays.
hmm.
Because like the Christmas overlays start in September and they don't get taken off until February, like completely.
Right.
So it's like 6 months of Christmas
Yeah.
out of the year at Disneyland. But if they shortened that to like 3 months or even 2 months, you
Yeah.
know, then it might be better for them. But
Uh,
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen because it takes so much to just put it up,
yeah. It is a
and to
lot.
take it down. You got to like milk it for all it's worth
Yeah.
once it's up there.
It's
But
perfect. Uh huh.
I did want to mention that the outdoor music for the Haunted Mansion during the overlay
Hmm.
is actually Disneyland Paris's Phantom Manor um, music box track.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, so I didn't know if you had known that,
No, I didn't.
but yeah, I had found that out. Somebody I know went to Disneyland Paris, and they had told me that
Hmm.
that's what was playing outside, and I looked it up, and sure enough, that's what it is.
Wow. Cool.
So yeah, it's
Well,
pretty cool.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this. I'm sure we've missed a couple things, but we can always revisit this topic because I know that
Yeah.
we both like it. And someday we will do a history of the Haunted Mansion on our show. It'll probably be done in like a 2 or 3 part series, but
Yeah, there's just so much there.
yeah, we'll touch on this again. But that was it for the Holiday Haunted Mansion. Hope you enjoyed that. And coming up next, I hope you enjoy our interview with Garner Holt. Well, we're going to start a new segment to our show, and we're very happy and honored to have a guest on our show, and his name is Garner Holt. Welcome to our show, Garner.
Well, thank you. Glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah. For those of you that not familiar with who Garner is, he's in the business of animatronics. And how did you get started with animatronics?
Well, actually, I got started by taking a trip to Disneyland with my parents. My parents were a horse racing family, and they basically had aspirations of me becoming a veterinarian. And it saved money. When I was born, that they would eventually pay for my college to become a veterinarian. Until that one day that they made the huge mistake of taking me to Disneyland when I was 14 years old. And I still remember on the way home in the car, leaning over the front seat and saying, Mom and Dad, I'm going to build theme park rides the rest of my life. That's what I want to do. And they kind of laughed, and little did they know that was really going to be the case for my life. But that's how it all got started.
Wow. And I was doing some research for the show, and I could see that you had done other things besides Disney. You started out. What was some of the first big projects you started out doing?
Well, obviously, I started in my parents' garage, basically, and I had a card table over in the corner of the garage, and I spent a lot of time tinkering and a lot of time making little projects and little displays and things, and I couldn't get anybody of any substance to pay any attention to me because I had no experience or anything, and so ultimately I put together a haunted house in the backyard and developed it was kind of a shack, and one thing led to another, and we had some major attention in the local paper, and people came out and saw my haunted house, and I was about 15 at the time, and a local mall saw the success of my haunted house in the backyard and decided they wanted to ask me to build a haunted house for them in the shopping mall here in San Bernardino. And I did that. Wow. And I contracted with them, and I put it together in an old burned out construction trailer that I bought from a gentleman for $400, and based on some investment that my parents and family and friends had put in to the company. And I successfully started building haunted houses throughout Southern California. So I was one of the first in that industry, 35 years ago, doing haunted houses in Southern California here. So that's kind of how it all got started, anyhow.
Wow, that's neat.
That is awesome. I used to live in Corona, and there was a guy named Jeff Bennett, and he had a house that was just decorated and haunted. He'd decorate it for Halloween and all this haunted stuff. And then for Christmas, he would decorate it with all these different, kind of like animatronics for Christmas, too. So I was just wondering if you had heard about that.
Well, yeah, there were a few others I knew of that were doing things around in, the Orange County area and over Corona and that I had heard. And I was real, there were a couple of people out there doing it. It wasn't, it was just very few, though. It wasn't widespread like it is today in the haunt industry. And it was, it was interesting to be a part of the beginnings of all of that, and I had my first animated figure was an Uncle Sam for the bicentennial in 1976 when I turned 16. And seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I did a project for the high school, and they used my Uncle Sam in the shopping mall, the same one that I put my haunted house in, and we had a little stage, and Uncle Sam stood up from his seat and gave a speech about America, and I had this thing rigged up with little pistons and cylinders and things that I got at a aircraft surplus place, and he actually stood up and gave a little speech, and that was my first animated figure, that I ever built. And I got some television coverage, and I was pretty good about calling the newspapers and TV stations trying to get people to pay attention, so we got some coverage, and that was the first figure that I did. That was the first public figure that I ever created, was Uncle Sam.
Wow.
Kind of wanted to skip forward a little bit to how I understand that you're the first outside company to do animatronics for Disney.
Well, Jack Skellington, I'm not sure. I'm only aware of, history. I don't know of any other company that's ever, provided prior to me that has provided animatronics that, especially when I say animatronics, meaning to the high level of, like the Jack Skellington figure,
right.
To put in a classic attraction. I know that putting Jack into the Haunted Mansion, it was the first time anybody'd ever done anything like that. But anyhow, Jack was a kind of a turning point, because that was the point that Disney, took recognition of what I was doing and said, wow, there's an entity out there that can build high quality figures, and they can do it really inexpensively, and so they have been sourcing to me ever since, for things like that. And prior to that, I did a lot of things for entertainment, parade float figures and all kinds of other things that way,
Right.
So I'd been working for them for quite some time, building, like Parade of Dreams and Mulan Parade I worked on, and Lion King and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the the Holiday Haunted Mansion?
Yeah, like what was the energy like working with Disney and Tim Burton?
Well, it was, fantastic. I mean, a fantastic opportunity, and, we were fortunate to have provided, pretty much all the, the animation in the show, which, were the, the singing plants and the holiday card in the load area, and, the wreath and all that stuff, and then the vampire teddies and the Christmas tree in the grand hall, and we did a lot of things in the attic, and did Graveyard, Pumpkin Mountain, Jack Skellington. Ultimately we put in Oogie Boogie and all the mirror figures.
All right.
That was that was a fantastic opportunity. I had dreamed about the Haunted Mansion as a kid. Going there as a kid, I got the record. I remember when my mom bought me the record, the Haunted Mansion record, the famous one with the book in it.
All right.
Bought me that at Kmart one year, and I took it to my fourth grade class and gave a speech up in front of the class about the Haunted Mansion while they played the record. And that was, that was kind of, back in fourth grade, that was kind of, interesting that, I was so attached to that, and I kind of developed what I did through haunted houses, and then ultimately, years later, I was actually putting one of my figures into the famous Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. That was really quite a turn of events,
Oh, yeah.
That must have been really surreal for you.
Yeah. Well, it was. It was like, it's my whole life has kind of unfolded in a very much a kind of a dream fulfilling way, because I've I just, at one point I could only dream about building animation, and then here we're building it for attractions like that. And it was just kind of amazing, and such an iconic place, and it was a great little show, and people just loved it, and it was a huge hit. And then we also created that same show for Tokyo, for the Haunted Mansion in Tokyo, and included other figures like Sally and, other figures that the mansion out here didn't have.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it was a really interesting time. I mean, we had absolutely free reign of the Haunted Mansion, and we could go, up in the very uppermost rafters and down in the very lowest of the basements, and we could really kind of have the run of the place. And it was really exciting to spend a month and a half in there, putting our stuff in and working with it and climbing around and wiring stuff in and really getting to know the place. That was really kind of fantastic dream come true.
Yeah, I think you did a really good job mixing the newer animatronics with some of the stuff that had been there, since 69. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I didn't design those things. All of that stuff. There's some brilliant minds there, and the person who gets credit for that is Steve Davidson. He was the brilliant mind that came up with all those concepts and all that wonderful stuff. The singing plants and all the artwork. Basically they handed it to me and said, "Can you build this?" So, they deserve the kudos for designing a concept that, the Pumpkin Mountain and the tree and the spider tree and, Jack and all those things, then putting them in places that they worked and it fit in, and Steve was the brains behind that whole thing, and, he's just a great guy, brilliant, very talented, as we all know, the things that he continues to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a question. I'm an engineer. So I know when you get a concept, it's, there's a big process going from concept to implementation. And along the way, there's always one part that's the most difficult. What would you say the most difficult part of the Holiday Mansion was?
Well, part of, people that like Disney know about Imagineering, and they know about what Imagineering is all about and the people there, and the people at Imagineering, and part of being, and I've never worked for Disney, but I consider myself an Imagineer. We have our company out here is like a small Mapo. In the old days they had Mapo where they would build all the things, and even the Disney people refer to us as very Mapo-like, and they call us Mapo East and all that kind of stuff. But we're part of the whole process that in being an Imagineer and doing the things we do, is, and everything that Disney does is taking something on a piece of paper and turning it into reality. So that's the challenge, taking something and making an idea and making it real. And I can't think of any. I know there were, countless challenges, the things like, building a, you have certain challenges like, Pumpkin Mountain, you have, it's you look at it, it's pretty darn big. It's like, how do you build that in the middle of my shop and then deliver it into the middle of the graveyard there and make it work, And so we had to build it in pieces, and a lot of people don't know, but there's, some, real interesting doors that access, the graveyard there that you can drive a truck through practically. So, you can, get those things in there. We had to do it all in such a way that we didn't damage anything, in the, everybody, I think, it's no secret to anybody that there's, in the Grand Hall, the Pepper's ghost effect that they have going on there. That's something everybody's aware of, and they're aware of the fact that that effect is created by, using glass. Well, when you build a tree that's made out of steel and you're erecting a tree in a Grand Hall inches away from giant priceless panes of glass, and one little slip or something, and bam, so There are some really big concerns that we had that how can we put all this stuff in and not make a scratch on anything in the existing house,
Right.
and so there were things like that had to be well thought out, and and we did, and we were very successful.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, and they get to do it over and over again each year. They have to. We trained the team down there how to install it, over a period of a couple of years. And
Right.
now we're not involved in install anymore. They do it all completely themselves.
Okay, yeah,
Wow.
that's what I was gonna ask. Any other questions,
Yeah,
Laura?
no, but I remember when they were putting all of this in, because Lynn and I were working there the first year they put it in, and they had the entire Haunted Mansion just like cornered off, and nobody could go in at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
and the rumors were that Tim Burton was there, and they were doing something, and I think one time I had to go down there and clean the bathrooms, and I saw the big Jack Skellington face that you see in the elevator
Mm-hmm.
when you come down,
Well,
and I was like, oh, that's what's going on.
well, just like any show, they want to try really hard to make sure that it doesn't leak out, because if it all leaks out and people get a lot of pictures of it and it gets all over the internet, then or they want it to be a huge surprise and everything. So but for the most part it was, and it was a huge success and well received. And there's some Disney purists that feel that it's sacrilegious to desecrate the old original house, but I think in the interest of the attraction, the surge of interest and publicity that it created for the mansion that was just had average queue.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now there's multi-hour queue lines and things like that. I mean, and then also in Japan it was a huge success. Just there were 4-hour lines there in Japan.
Wow.
To get into that thing,
Yeah,
So,
and it also kind of brought out because Nightmare Before Christmas kind of turned into a cult classic, but when it first came out, it was a sleeper movie. Not a lot of people were that interested in it. So 10 years later, and they have this decked out the Haunted Mansion with it. It just kind of brought people back into the awareness of how great that movie was, so it kind of
isn't it funny, some movies, even Wizard of Oz back in the day, wasn't a huge smash on, when it opened, but it became a major, one of the world classics now. So, sometimes things start out that way, and then people start to recognize, as time goes on. But you're very correct. In Japan, it was a massively, even greater than here. It's a cult thing, and they were really into it. And so when they put it there, it was just a huge success. Greater than even here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
any new projects you could speak about for Disney?
Well, I'm kind of limited on things that I can talk about, but I think, we've had, Disney's allowed us to, mention a few things, and, they've allowed us to have some artwork out there and, do some little events and things, and it's no secret that, we provided a bunch of characters to the mermaid attraction, both here and in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And we're really excited to do that. A lot of the figures you see there, we did about 90% of the figures in the rides. Yeah. And we're excited to have done that. It's a beautiful little attraction, and the Florida one's going to be even a little more elaborate. It has a queue line that's a little different, and it has another additional scuttle on the queue line. And so we're working on that, or finish that, I should say. And then also, it's not a secret to anybody that we're doing a lot of the figures for the Cars ride. We're currently working on that, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah.
And we're working in some other parks that are not in the Americas or over across the ocean, and we've got some attractions that we're working on over there too, and we're a little more limited on what we can say about those.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they're a little farther away from from opening and that, so.
Yeah.
But we're very proud to have worked on Mermaid, and we're very proud to work on Cars. It's going to be a stunning attraction. It's just going to be a blockbuster, mind blower attraction that's just going to be nuts. It's going to be so exciting.
I can't wait.
I don't think anybody's ever conceived of anything that size.
Yeah.
I can't imagine topping the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay or the Little Mermaid. Lynn and I were talking about this before you came on, but I think the animatronics in the Little Mermaid were just fascinating. I was blown away because you guys even got the hair right.
Yeah.
No,
it was a fun attraction.
movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was it's a great thing, and everything is very well done. It's very well thought out. Larry Nicolai, who designed that attraction, is just, he's one of my favorite artists, and he's just a brilliant man, and he has a feel for the Disney way, the Disney flair, and how to present Disney characters, and he's just a brilliant guy, and he's really great to work with and work for, and we would do anything to work with. We were able to work with him on Monsters, Monsters Inc. and stuff like that for Japan and out here, and we did a lot with him there. So we jump at the chance to work with Larry and anything that he does. He's just such a neat guy.
Oh, that's great. Well,
yeah.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I really do appreciate you coming on, and really appreciate everything you've contributed to the Disney parks.
Well, I appreciate that. One thing I might add to that is, a lot of people look at me as, and GHP, the company, Garner Holt Productions, look at us kind of as, the outsider, and it's like, why doesn't, why don't things get done, like they did the old days, April on that. But I think one thing that if I were able to let anybody really know about how we feel, and this is very true, I'm as big a Disney fan as anybody, and I want it to be the old Disney way, and I want it to be the true Disney way. And, I don't cut corners. I care about the product we create. I really have a lot of caring about the content and what it is and how it's built. And, if there are limitations in what we do, it's not up to us. It's, we'll go all the way with it as best that we can.
Yeah.
And we, I think, we're not the evil enemy. We're a company that really cares about what we do, and we want to, even though we're an outside company, I feel like we're as much Disney here as anybody at Disney.
Yeah, it really does show.
Definitely.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does show.
Yeah.
And, and if anybody'd like to, check out our work, we're at www.garnerholt.com, and Garner Holt, all one word. And we are creating a new website that's going to be out by November, by the IAPA show time in November. So, so anybody that can take a look there and see what we do.
Great. Well, I do appreciate it again, Garner, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to talk to you, and thanks. Appreciate your interest in what we do.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again.
Thank
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Wow, what a great interview. We're just so honored and
I know.
so happy to have Garner Holt be a part of our show today. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, very interesting.
I do have to say it.
Mm-hmm.
You can cut it out if you want, but we're not worthy. We're not worthy.
No, that's something I was thinking about. We're just a small podcast starting out. There's bigger ones that are getting 80,000 downloads and whatnot. But we're just starting out, and we do this because we love it. And I just think of people that I'd like to have on our show, and I just give it a shot. And we were just so lucky enough to have him come on.
I
didn't
know.
really have any hookups or anything. It just kind of happened. But
Yeah.
anyhow, Garner Holt, interesting guy, really smart, great company he has, and he's done a lot of the Chuck E. Cheese. He did over 400 different Chuck E. Cheese restaurants for the animatronics. Just so many different things. The submarines
Yeah.
at Disneyland, Little Mermaid attraction.
It really shows their range of what kind of animatronics they can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Sure.
none of them are the same, and also the theming is not the same.
No.
You
You
have
can't.
a very diverse theming.
Yeah, you can't say, "Oh, that's a Garner Holt," animatronic. It's just
No, it's
just
Disney
it's
animatronic.
Disney. Yeah, and that's something like he made clear at the end. It's like he
Mhm.
feels a part of Disney, and I believe he is. Their company is just as
Definitely.
part of Disney as anyone else that works for Disney. So that was great. And so that was episode 29, and we also want to mention a few things at the end here. You can leave comments on iTunes. We haven't had a comment in a while, so I'd really like to see some more comments if possible. Just go to iTunes and leave your review for us on our page there. Also, you can join our Facebook page, Twitter. I've been doing more tweeting lately. Lynn Sweet Spot. What else do we have going on? Oh, we have a website, www.thesweepspot.com, and you can see show notes and photos that I'll put on there to kind of go with the topic of the show. Last week, we talked about Ray's retirement. I put a picture of Ray on there, and we talked about Plaza Gardens, and I put a few on there that we had a friend of mine take for us. And we have an ongoing contest. Is that right?
Yep, we've got the mystery photo contest for October, so go check it out and
one more week, right?
tell us. Yeah, one more week. So next Friday is the close date on that, and so yeah, go give us your best shot. There's some people who guessed the right answer, so yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yay!
Yay! And Kathy, your mug is coming to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to mention. As you know, we're friends with Matt and Nate at Wedway Radio, and I do a blog for them called Thunder Alley. It's on their website, wedwayradio.com. And they have been nominated for podcast awards under the category for I think it's travel, and so we just want to pass on the word. If you like their podcast or if you haven't heard it, go check it out. It's a really good podcast. But if you like the podcast, they're encouraging people to go and vote at Podcast Awards. I'm going to put a link in our show notes for this website where you can vote, and just kind of help them out, spreading the love, and help our buddies out. Maybe they'll win an award this year. So
yeah, that'd be great.
you can vote every day for the next it looks like about 2 weeks. It closes on the 27th, so you can vote every day. So go ahead and do that, and that'd be great. And I think that's about it for this episode. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate all our listeners, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.